The palace calls it a necessary review. Insiders are whispering something much darker, a power move, a warning shot, a royal earthquake dressed up as protocol. And when the order came straight from King Charles III himself, it wasn't just another headline. It was a declaration of war behind palace walls, an official investigation into Meghan, into everything. And her reaction? Oh, it said everything. This is not just family drama. This is legacy versus rebellion, crown versus freedom, tradition versus modern chaos. And at the center of it all stands Meghan Markle, no longer quietly distant, no longer politely stepping aside, but fiercely, openly, emotionally pushing back. When Charles made the decision to formally investigate, it wasn't whispered behind closed doors. It wasn't a private family discussion over tea. It was deliberate. It was strategic. It was meant to be seen. For the first time in modern royal memory, a reigning monarch signaled that the conflict with his own son and daughter-in-law had reached a point of no return. And the palace message was clear, enough that, let's be honest, this didn't start overnight. The tension has been simmering since 2018, since Meghan walked into the royal family beside Prince Harry, glowing, confident, independent. At first, it was excitement, a fresh face, a modern love story. But beneath the glamour, cracks were already forming that behind the scenes, the whispers grew louder. Clashes, misunderstandings, friction. And then the silence broke that interviews, documentaries, carefully timed releases, public revelations that felt less like confession and more like confrontation. The 2021 sit-down that shook the monarchy to its core. The moment allegations of racism were spoken out loud, heard around the world. The conversation about Archie's skin tone, the feeling of isolation, the claim of no protection that the monarchy didn't respond with outrage, it responded with restraint. But restraint doesn't mean weakness. And Charles was watching. When Meghan and Harry stepped down from their senior roles in 2020, many assumed that would be the end of it. A quiet separation, a clean break. Instead, it became a new chapter, one filled with billion-dollar deals, global platforms, and narratives that kept pointing back to the palace. From Netflix screens to podcast microphones, the message was clear. The story wasn't over. Critics began asking uncomfortable questions. If you left the institution, why keep talking about it? If you wanted independence, why keep the titles? If the monarchy was suffocating, why does every project circle back to royal pain? And then came the financial speculation, the brand deals, the contracts, the growing empire built partly on royal proximity. Supporters said it was survival. Critics said it was strategy. Through it all, Charles waited. But once he became king, waiting was no longer an option. Because now it wasn't about fatherhood. It was about the crown. The British monarchy is not just a family. It is an institution layered with centuries of ritual, symbolism, and power. Public trust is its oxygen, and every allegation, every headline, every explosive interview chips away at that trust. So when Charles ordered an investigation, insiders described it as controlled but firm, not emotional, not reactive. Strategic. The investigation isn't just about racism claims, it isn't just about finances, it isn't just about media deals, it's about narrative control, about separating fact from perception, about drawing a line between personal freedom and institutional accountability. And that line, according to palace sources, had been crossed too many times. But here's where it gets explosive. Instead of staying silent, instead of letting the palace quietly conduct its review, Meghan responded publicly, emotionally, forcefully. She described feeling targeted, attacked, misunderstood. She implied the investigation wasn't about clarity, it was about punishment. She suggested the family failed to defend her when she needed them most, yet now they were scrutinizing her every move. And that response, it widened the crack into a canyon dot. Because from the monarchy's perspective, this investigation is leadership. From Meghan's perspective, it's retaliation. Two completely different realities colliding in real time. And Harry, though less visible in the latest wave of commentary, his stance is crystal clear. His loyalty lies with his wife. Every time she speaks, his silence feels like agreement. Every time the palace tightens its grip, he moves further away. That the divide isn't just emotional now, it's philosophical. On one side, duty, legacy, centuries of continuity. On the other, personal truth, autonomy, Martin self-expression. Charles cannot afford instability, not during a reign still defining itself, not while public support for the monarchy faces generational scrutiny, not while global audiences dissect every royal gesture. Launching an investigation sends a message to the public, to parliament, to the family. The crown still holds authority, but authority comes with risk, because investigations don't just uncover truth, they reopen wounds. If the findings favor the palace, critics will say it was biased. biased. If they validate any of Meghan's claims, the damage could be catastrophic. This is the tightrope Charles is walking. Some argue he's being too harsh. That formal action only intensifies the feud. That airing internal matters under the label of investigation risks, amplifying exactly what he's trying to control. Others insist it's long overdue. That unchecked allegations and continuous public criticism have left the monarchy exposed. That silence was misinterpreted as weakness. But here's the uncomfortable truth. This isn't just about Meghan. It's about what happens when royal bloodlines meet Hollywood independence. When centuries-old institutions confront 21st century transparency. When private pain becomes public narrative. The monarchy survives on mystique. Meghan thrives on voice. And those two forces are incompatible without compromise. That the investigation also draws a stark boundary. Leaving royal duties doesn't mean leaving consequences. Titles may remain, but accountability remains too. Harry was born into this structure. Meghan married into it. Their departure changed their roles, not their connection. That connection is permanent. For reconciliation to happen, something would have to shift. Pride would have to soften. Statements would have to be retracted or clarified. Apologies, perhaps on both sides, would need to surface. But right now, neither side appears ready to blink. Meghan continues building her independent identity. Major contracts, global platforms, carefully curated appearances, a brand beyond Buckingham Palace. Yet the irony lingers. The royal connection still fuels global fascination. The story cannot detach itself from the crown because the crown is what made it global, and that creates tension no press statement can erase. Inside the palace, sources describe the mood as controlled but resolute. Charles understands the emotional weight. He is both king and father, but history shows that when crown and family collide, crown wins. He inherited not just a throne, but a fragile modern perception of monarchy. He knows how quickly public opinion shifts. He knows how deeply accusations of racism, secrecy, and financial opacity cut into institutional legitimacy. Doing nothing was no longer an option. But will doing something make it worse? That's the gamble. Because investigations can bring clarity. They can also ignite fresh outrage. Meghan's reaction has already reshaped the narrative. Instead of appearing defensive, she appears defiant. Instead of retreating, she confronts. For supporters, that's strength. For critics, it's escalation. The world watches as tradition and transformation clash in slow motion. Is Charles protecting the throne or pushing his son further away? Is Meghan defending her dignity or deepening the divide? The monarchy has survived wars, abdications, scandals, but this battle feels different. It's not about secret affairs or hidden letters. It's about values, about whose version of truth defines the future. And as the investigation unfolds, one thing is undeniable. The royal family has entered uncharted territory. This is no longer a whispered family disagreement. This is a historic power struggle, and it's playing out in front of the world. Because now the question is no longer why King Charles ordered the investigation. The question is, what happens when the findings, whatever they are, collide with Meghan's unwavering resistance? And make no mistake, this is no quiet review happening behind velvet curtains. This is a calculated royal maneuver unfolding under global scrutiny. Inside palace corridors, advisors understand something chillingly simple. Perception is power. The monarchy does not merely function, it performs stability. It projects calm authority. It embodies continuity. In every explosive interview, every accusation, every carefully worded statement from California chips at that carefully polished armor. King Charles III is not reacting emotionally. He is reacting institutionally. That distinction matters because when a monarch acts, he does so not as a father first, but as a guardian of a centuries-old symbol. But Meghan, she speaks as an individual, as a woman who believes she was wronged, as someone who refuses to let her narrative be managed by palace press offices. That contrast, institution versus individual, is the heartbeat of this entire conflict. And the investigation itself, it reportedly touches on multiple layers: public statements, financial entanglements, media contracts, the use of royal titles in commercial ventures, the ripple effects of allegations that ignited global debate about race and tradition within the monarchy. From the palace perspective, this is about clarifying facts, drawing boundaries, protecting what they call the dignity of the crown. From Meghan's perspective, it feels like surveillance, like scrutiny aimed not at truth but at containment. When news of the investigation broke, insiders expected silence from Montecito. Instead, Meghan's tone sharpened. She did not retreat into quiet reflection. She leaned forward. She framed the investigation as unjust, as hurtful, as another chapter in what she believes has been a pattern of institutional coldness. And that reaction, bold, unapologetic, amplified everything. Because the monarchy thrives on understatement. statement. Meghan thrives on declaration that the emotional undertones cannot be ignored. This is a father investigating circumstances tied to his son's wife. This is a son standing firmly beside his spouse while the crown scrutinizes her actions. The optics alone are explosive. That Prince Harry has made it clear through years of public positioning that his loyalty rests with Meghan. That loyalty is unshaken. And in royal dynamics, loyalty can feel like defiance when it moves away from the throne. For Charles, the stakes are generational. He inherited a monarchy already navigating modern skepticism. Younger audiences question relevance. Commonwealth nations debate their constitutional ties. Every scandal becomes fuel for broader conversations about the monarchy's future. That allowing continuous public allegations without formal response could signal weakness. But responding too aggressively risks appearing punitive. That is the razor's edge. That some royal watchers argue that this investigation is not merely about Meghan's past comments. They believe it is about precedent, about setting a line that says, stepping back from royal duties does not exempt you from accountability when your statements impact the institution. If former working royals can freely criticize without response, what stops future fractures? Others, however, see danger. They warn that formal scrutiny risks martyring Meghan in the eyes of her supporters. It could validate her claims that the institution prioritizes image over empathy. And public sympathy? It's unpredictable. It can swing overnight. There is also the financial layer, the quiet but powerful undercurrent. Since stepping away, Meghan and Harry have secured major commercial deals, streaming platforms, publishing contracts, speaking engagements. They've constructed an independent empire. But critics argue that the royal connection remains central to that empire's value. And the world watches. That the most haunting question lingers. Is this investigation the beginning of resolution or the formalization of permanent distance? Harry's future within the monarchy remains ambiguous. He was born into it. His lineage is unchangeable, but emotional alignment has shifted. Physical distance has widened. Philosophical divides have hardened. For Charles, the pain is likely personal beneath the protocol. But monarchy demands sacrifice, sometimes of comfort, sometimes of closeness. History shows that when personal bonds threaten institutional stability, the institution prevails. Yet history has never faced a duchess who wields global media influence at this scale. So we arrive at a crossroads. If the investigation restores public trust, Charles will be seen as decisive and protective of tradition. If it escalates tensions and fuels further public confrontation, it may deepen fractures beyond repair. Meghan's reaction already signaled one thing with crystal clarity: she will not quietly absorb scrutiny. She will speak, she will challenge, she will frame her experience in her own language. And that defiance ensures this story is far from over. The monarchy stands on centuries of ritual and restraint. Meghan stands on modern platforms that reward boldness and candor. One moves slowly, the other moves instantly. And in this collision of tempo, authority, and identity, the outcome remains uncertain. But one truth is undeniable: this investigation has transformed private tension into historic confrontation. The crown has drawn its line. Meghan has drawn hers. And somewhere between those lines lies the future of the monarchy itself.